Hello and welcome to Irish Football Fan TV. This is the final word. Republic of Ireland nil, Bulgaria nil. The last game of the Uefa Nations League in 2020, and capped off a pretty horrendous year. And we have to dissect this game. I suppose we'll just start off with the lineup because a lot of people were surprised, I suppose, by some of the selections. I think I was only one off players in terms of the starting 11 show. I think Ronan Curtis over Jack Byrne was the only difference, I believe. People were letting me know. So anyway, I'll go through it with yourself, Gary. I have it here up on the screen in front of me. So I have Darren Randolph in goal, Ryan Manning at left back, Kevin Long at centre back, Shane Duffy the other centre back, and then Darragh O'Shea right back. And then in midfield we had Conor Howrahan, Jason Knight, Robbie Brady, and then a front three of Darrell Horgan, James Collins, and Ronan Curtis. When you seen that, were you confident? Did you, do you think that we could have nicked it by looking at those players?
Yeah, I mean, it's pretty much as I expected. I would have liked to have seen Jack Byrne starting, but I suppose I didn't expect to see Jack Byrne starting. So if you're asking me the team I wanted to pick or the team I expected Stephen to pick, yeah, it's pretty much along those lines. And I didn't actually try and sit down and pick my own team before the game started, but I certainly wasn't surprised by anything there. It's along the lines the 4-3-3 formation that Stephen always plays, and yeah, there was no real surprises there for me. I thought I predicted a 1-0 win. I thought that team was good enough to get a goal, to get a win, and well, unfortunately, it turned out it wasn't.
Yeah, I mean, kind of the first 10 minutes, there was absolutely nothing to shout about. Absolutely nothing. I mean, I think both teams were just trying to feel each other out. Kevin Long got an early yellow card for not really a lot in it. I felt like the Bulgarians were playing up to almost everything we were doing. Any sort of challenges, they were rolling around and making a meal of it and making it way worse than it seemed.
Yeah, it was an early yellow card. The referee had a reputation for that. I read that yesterday before the game, that it was one of his first international matches, but he'd refereed a couple of games before on 21 games, and he had something like an average of 6 yellow cards and a red card. So I'd hope the players were put on warning for that. I actually thought he had quite a good game. Kevin Long won, maybe not, yeah, but I suppose one of the criticisms is maybe it was too early in the game to book somebody, but I know the laws of the game don't change from the first minute to the 90th minute. But maybe just the way games are refereed, you often get away with a challenge in the first 10 or 15 minutes. You don't get away with later on. But no, I was actually quite happy with the referee. I thought he was fair enough. He booked a couple of Bulgarian players as well. If anything, we were very, very lucky with the Ryan Manning challenge, but we'll probably come on to that anyway. But no, I wouldn't actually be critical of the referee on yesterday's performance. That's my take on him anyway.
Well, I was more so saying that about the Bulgarians more than the referee. I felt like they were just making a meal of things. But yeah, Ryan Manning's, I don't think that looked as bad as people were making it out to be, and as bad as that player made it out to be. It looked like he got the ball to me, and as well as that, Jason Knight was trying to set the tone as well with challenges. I remember him being very early, just a very aggressive tackle, just to set the tone for the rest of the game. I think that that early challenge was the thing that really got him fired up. But yeah, Ryan Manning up until that point was doing well, and he was getting on the ball, and he was getting wide for players. He's becoming an angle, a very good option on that left back position, because obviously Darragh O'Shea is not a natural left back by any stretch. I mean, he's done well on the right, but as a left back, he's not going to give you what a natural left-footed player is going to give you. So I think he actually is going to be a good fit going forward if Enda Stevens isn't there, or even just a kind of deputy to Enda Stevens, just to have that natural left back. So you have two left backs there that can come in and do well. I didn't think he really, besides that challenge, I didn't think he did a whole lot wrong in the whole game. I thought he actually looked bright.
Yeah, to be honest, I wasn't as impressed with Ryan Manning maybe as you were then. I thought he did okay. I don't think he necessarily had a bad game. I don't think for me, I don't think he did enough to stand out and to, I suppose, to cause Stephen a problem at left back. I think Enda Stevens, when fit and available, will be our left back. But I think options like playing Matt Doherty on the left will probably be his second choice now. Maybe, I mean, we don't know what Stephen thought of Ryan Manning, of course, and maybe he saw it your way more than my way. But he's certainly a good option for the squad, and I wouldn't be ruling him out. But I suppose yesterday was a chance for a few players to start and to stake a claim. And I don't know. I don't think Ryan. I don't know what do other people think, but I don't know if Ryan did enough to stand out for me. And maybe I'm being coloured by the challenge as well, because I thought he was very lucky it wasn't a red. I mean, it was certainly a yellow. It was rash. It was a bit reckless, and I wouldn't have liked it to seen it going back to VAR, and particularly with continental referees. I think we might have just got away with one. I'm not saying it was a definite red, but I'm saying I've seen them given as red cards.
Yeah, well, just maybe it's because I was in the stadium and I was kind of looking up at it, looking down at the positions he was taking up. I felt like he was giving our midfielders an option, but he was also giving our centre backs an option. And when he needed to go up the line, he would go up the line. So for me, I just thought positionally he looked very good. Just kind of moving on from that. Anyway, I thought our defence looked good from keeper, right back, centre back to left back. I thought they were solid enough and never really looked that troubled until kind of after the half an hour mark, and then they started getting corners. I remember one was headed over by Ronan Curtis, then they headed one over, so they were starting to get a couple of chances. Then we had obviously a couple of chances with James Collins, who was very isolated for the first 20-25 minutes, I thought.
Yeah, he was. I don't think he got great service, and he did have that great chance in the first half. It was a good ball. Ronan Curtis it was deflected, I think, but he just couldn't get on the end of it. He came so close. He threw himself at it, and had he made contact, it was an open goal. I'm sure he would have scored. But yeah, I suppose James is another player that, as I said in the preview, I was very impressed with him off the bench in Cardiff, and I thought he did enough to start. And maybe I'm being too critical as well, but I don't think he did enough. And no, I don't think he got great service either, but I don't think he did enough to put his hand up and say, and again, cause Stephen Kenny a problem, but a nice problem to say, God, I've too many people now. Who do I pick for the central striker role? Now, again, he's still an option, and he is playing regularly and scoring regularly in the championship. So he will certainly be discussed and be talked about as an option, because it's not like we have somebody in the role. Well, we don't have somebody in that type of striker's role in the Premier League. I mean, we've Adam Ida at Norwich, who hopefully is going to get a lot more game time in the next 4 months. But yeah, I suppose I was expecting more from James Collins. Another player I was probably expecting more, a little disappointed in, was Ronan Curtis, who was someone, you probably remember, I tipped him to score our goal. Okay, I got my 1-0 prediction wrong as well. And we can come on and talk about his chance in the second half. And it was a decent cross for James Collins. But again, he's someone that didn't for me grab his chance and didn't really put his hand up. Now, I appreciate, Paul, you were in the stadium. You do get a far better view in the stadium than you do watching on TV, because you don't get all the angles. You don't see a lot of the off-the-ball work. You don't see the formations, etc. So I think it is much more difficult to judge. But I suppose, like myself and nearly all the other fans, we were all watching on TV. So that is what we're going to have to use, as opposed to in a normal game, when fans are there, we'd have 20, 30, 40, 50,000 people at the game who can and look, we all disagree in many things anyway, and it doesn't mean we're wrong or right. It's just a different opinion and a different way of looking at it. I had Robbie Brady as my man of the match last Sunday, and people picked out James McLean. It doesn't mean, it's just a different way of looking at the game, and it doesn't mean they're wrong and I'm right, or certainly not, or that it doesn't necessarily mean I'm wrong either. So I suppose that's why it opens up discussions. It's great to have opinions, and we can all have different opinions, and who played well, who didn't play well, and who impressed people.
Yeah, well, you spoke about Curtis there. I think, yeah, he looked like he was, always an option for the ball. He was playing on the right, which he doesn't normally play. I know he swapped over with Daryl Horgan then after a while. And that's kind of when Daryl Horgan created that brilliant chance for Collins. And you spoke about taking your chance. I mean, that you're never going to get an easier chance than that. When Horgan spins that defender, then he takes him on and stands up across to the back post. Exactly what you want from your winger. And Collins manages to head it over, and he's like 2 or 3 yards out, and you're thinking that's his bread and butter. He scores them 9 times out of 10, and just he couldn't get under it. He was too far over it. Couldn't get under it, and heads it over. And before that, or either before that or after that, he had another chance that was whipped in by Brady, which he actually won the foul. It was himself or Curtis won the foul, and Robbie Brady took one. And he glanced in, the keeper made a save as well. So I think Collins had the best of the chances, especially in the first half. He had 2 or 3 good chances, maybe 1 or 2 half chances, but definitely that one that Horgan stood up for him. And that was kind of the spark that Horgan needs to show more often if he wants to be anywhere near this first team. And we are missing a lot of players, but if he wants to be in the first team continuously, or in the first, say, squad that's picked, he needs to start showing more of what he did there, but over the whole game, rather than just for 10 seconds of a game.
Yeah, well, I think you do get more than 10 seconds from Daryl Horgan, but I think it's probably a fair comment that there have been times, and he's looked superb in these games, but I don't think we've seen even 45 or 90 minutes of that. And I wonder, well, my thinking or my thoughts on someone like that is then maybe they're the ideal player to have as an impact player off the bench with 15 or 20 minutes to go, particularly if you're chasing a game and you need a goal. But then you bring that guy on, he does really well, and then you say, well, what a bad manager, he should have started him in the first place, So what do you do? It's but I take your point about Daryl Horgan, because I do think he's faded out of games at international level, but he's also at times looked the best player on the pitch. So it's a bit of a mixed bag, I think.
Yeah, well, yeah, I just think he needs to do it for a longer period in games, and as you said, he could be good off the bench. I think he came off the bench against Wales in the Aviva, and he was very direct and looked well. And then people started to kind of take notice of him from that moment onwards. Obviously, Stephen Kenny's worked with him previously, but we went to the halftime at 0-0. For me, you were saying to me that off air last night that you thought Bulgaria were better in the first half. I didn't think that. I thought we were the better team over both halves. I felt.
Yeah, well, I thought over the 90 minutes we were. I thought Bulgaria had the better chances in the first half, and there was we had a bit of a ropey spell when they kind of opened us up a few times. Sorry.
Jason Knight had given them the ball, and then they were on the counter attack from that. But he done well there to recover back and actually make up the ground to get in the way almost of the shot, and then Darren Randolph had a comfortable enough save.
Yeah, we did give the ball. We did, and I think it was Shane Duffy played a bad ball across the back another time. And sorry if I'm getting the wrong player. I think it was Shane, and they had a good chance out of that. I mean, I think in the first half they had something like 6 efforts on goal to our 2, and I mean they didn't look a great side, but I thought they probably shaded the first half. Definitely in the second half, we definitely upped it, I thought, and we more or less took control of the game, which was a bit strange from the sense that they actually had to win. I mean, the draw was no good to them, and I think a draw certainly had obviously benefits for us. So you would have expected them to at least throw the kitchen sink at us for the last 15 or 20 minutes, which never happened.
Yeah, well, I mean, just coming back from the halftime break, there was nothing really to talk about till about I have here the 52nd minute. Decent play down the right hand side between Horgan and O'Shea. I think there was a throw in taken, and then O'Shea whipped in a ball, and James Collins volleyed it off the side netting. Again, we were getting closer at that point, and I felt the longer the game went on, the more Darragh O'Shea grew into the game. And I thought himself and Jason Knight were absolutely fantastic last night. Two young lads coming into the squad and looking like they've been in the squad for, numerous campaigns. They really look like they're going to be the ones that really, come to life when we get the World Cup qualification campaign underway. And I think himself, Malumbi, Connolly, when all these lads are mixed in with the team that we have now, I'm really excited to see what we have for the future. I know people are getting really hung up on last night's results and a lot of the results in September since Steve took over. But we do have to remember as well, and we'll come back to the chances and stuff like that. But we do have to remember is that there's COVID, there's been suspensions, there's been injuries, all these things. James McCarthy's father's passed away as well. That was a family bereavement. That's why he wasn't involved. We've had all these things against us, and thoughts with James' family as well at this tough time. But on the team, and people are like really hammering the team. But I think a lot of people are actually just forgetting that all these players are missing as well. But that's because the players that have come in, okay, they haven't scored, but some of them have done well. Like Knight, he nearly sets up Ronan Curtis. Not long after that chance that Collins volleyed off the side netting, I think it was 2 minutes later, and Knight comes bombing on with I don't know who he reminded me of. I think David Silva or something with that run, and then the slip in pass to Ronan Curtis. And then you're thinking for Ronan Curtis, just keep it down and get it on target. And he blazes over, and I was just like, that could be your opportunity. That could have been the one that nailed down your spot in the squad. And literally blown it over the bar,
That was a great chance, and for me, that was nearly our best chance. Yeah, you mentioned a couple of points on that. You mentioned the chance for James Collins earlier that was put into the side netting. I thought actually that was a very good move, as you said. Darragh O'Shea did really well. I thought James did really well for that as well. It was a good run to the near post, and it was just outside the post in the side netting. I mean, that's one of the chances you just say you came close. Another day it might have gone in. I wouldn't have any fault on anyone for that one. Ronan Curtis should have done far, far better with that chance. And he could have been the hero if that one went in. Just going back to another thing, because I know we were chatting after the videos were done last night, and both of us separately had picked out the same two players as their stars. And I mean, I remember doing it on my video straight after the match, and I was a bit conscious, because I'm also conscious of my own bias. I think I even said it on the video, particularly towards the younger players coming through. But I thought Darragh O'Shea was superb, and I thought Jason Knight had a great game as well. And they were the two players I picked out as our best starters anyway, and our best performers. And I mean, Darragh O'Shea only came into the team last month, and with that superb performance in Finland. And I mean, I don't think it's even going to be an argument anymore. I think there's going to be a place found for him in the team, particularly with his versatility now as well, not just the squad, but in the starting 11, because he really looks like a player, very calm, very composed, and a very good defender. Yeah, Jason Knight, he had a great game in midfield. He's someone that had caught the eye in Derby, scoring a few goals. I admit I've probably only just seen clips of him and highlights, 5 minutes. I haven't watched too many Derby live games. I watched one, I think, last season. That was quite some time ago, before COVID and everything. So yeah, I thought he played really well as well, and definitely one for the future. And the players you mentioned, like Jay Malumbi, Aaron Connolly, etc., that weren't available, it's great to have all of them coming back in. So yeah, it's a pity, because if Ronan Curtis had taken that particularly good chance, James Collins, I suppose I'd forgotten it's only when you go through them, the number of chances he probably had about 4 chances to grab a goal. So maybe the service he got was actually better than I had viewed it at the time. And maybe even with hindsight, I'd probably say that we did create a few more chances than I had realised. So yeah, it's just a pity the ball wouldn't go in the net, and we didn't. I don't know if it's luck or what it is, but certainly we could have done with a bit of luck and a shot to have gone in or something like that. But having said that, Paul, I don't remember the Bulgarian keeper making a great save. I mean, it's probably the best effort was the one from Robbie Brady that came off the bar. That was midway through the second half. And that was a superb shot, just a couple of inches lower, and the keeper would have had no chance with that. But apart from that, I don't, and even including that, I don't remember the Bulgarian keeper having to make a spectacular save. And it was a keeper with 3 caps, and the only keeper in the squad that had actually played for his country before.
Yeah, well, I think, with that, just before we go on to the Robbie Brady chance, they had a chance, 5 minutes after Ronan Curtis is blazing over. Dimitrov from the corner, the ball lands at his feet in the box. And I don't know, from where I was sitting in the stadium, it looked like Shane Duffy had blocked it. And I had the TV monitor beside me, and I looked at it. It looked like he didn't get anywhere near it. But it looked like he threw his body at the ball, and it went out from a corner. So I don't know how it could have went out for a corner if it didn't hit off him.
Yeah, there seemed to have been a slight deflection. I thought he'd put it wide as well, even watching it on TV first time. But there did seem to have been a slight deflection. So credit to the defense of the defender, but it was a glorious chance for Bulgaria. It was definitely their best chance. And that came as well just around the hour mark, if I remember correctly.
Yeah,
which
59
which
minutes.
had been the time we had conceded the 2 goals against Finland and the goal against Wales. So thankfully that didn't go in, and it's probably just a coincidence or something like that. But the 3 goals we conceded against to Finland and Wales in this competition had all come between the 60th and 66th minute. So and Bulgaria's best chance came at that time as well. But thankfully that didn't go in. That was their best chance, just as you said, a couple of minutes after the Ronan Curtis chance.
Yeah, it's frustrating because if you say that that had it went in after Ronan Curtis, then we'd be cursing Ronan Curtis and James Collins in that case. But I think obviously you mentioned there about Robbie's shot. I thought Robbie done well there to create the space to get the strike, and you're just thinking, please, just something go in for us, an OG or whatever, like it did against Gibraltar in that game where Dizzy hit it and it came off the defender. You just were hoping that something like that would happen for us. And then, we brought on the subs, we brought on Cullen, and then a while later we brought on Jack Byrne around the 78-minute mark for Robbie Brady. He tried to make things happen, but we're just lacking quality. And again, it's because we're missing players. It's a simple fact. People say, well, the players that we have don't score anyway. But I think in a more likelihood, if we had our first team against their first team, I still think we're winning that game. We just need to start scoring goals. I mean, again, people are going to get hung up on the results and the score lines and stuff like that, because that's ultimately, at the end of the day, a lot of people only want to see the results. But in everything we're doing, like defensively, we don't look shaky. And any of the goals that we've conceded has been from, say, one mistake throughout the whole game when we've been punished. The problem is, if they make a mistake, we haven't been punishing those teams. And I think maybe if we'd been punishing a couple of those teams, we wouldn't be sitting here, even debating it. It's because we've gone so many games without a goal that people are just sick of watching us. People are saying that's one of the worst performances from an Irish team. But yeah, don't remember that we're missing so many players. 14 out of the 26 that were originally called up weren't in the team. And then you have, who came on then? You had the other players who came on then.
Josh Cullen came on first. Yeah. Oh, after Josh was...
Yeah, I said him already, though.
Yeah.
There was Jack Byrne, and then there was Troy Parrott, and then there was... Sean Maguire as well.
Christie and Sean Maguire, yeah.
Yeah. But I mean, they didn't have enough time to make an impact at that stage, and we were just trying to push on as usual, the late surge to try and get the goal, and it just wasn't to be. We ended up drawing the game 0-0. Everybody disappointed and deflated. I think the players more so than anyone are even more annoyed, that they can't score. They're obviously trying, and sometimes when you're trying so hard for something and it just won't come off, it just annoys you. And it's probably good that this international break now is over and they can regroup or whatever. And say if a couple of our players now in March are coming into a bit of form off the back of their club form, that would be great because we can carry that into the World Cup qualifiers. And if we have players, and I think you'd mentioned it in your 3 talking points, that we need our players to be playing at club level, and that's been a big factor. A lot of our Premier League players aren't playing for their clubs. Howard's not getting a game for Villa, Randolph's not getting a game for West Ham, and then who are there's other players there, I'm sure. I don't think Sean Maguire has been playing that regular for Preston.
But even Kevin Long, Kevin Long has actually played quite a bit for Burnley lately. Yeah, but Jay Malumbi isn't getting a run for Brighton. Aaron Connolly hasn't played too much for Brighton lately either.
Yeah, so I mean, but we need those players to be playing coming into the international break. I mean, otherwise we'll be like Scotland or someone like that. And I know Scotland have just qualified for the Euros, and they have started to get players in their team, the likes of Andy Robertson and stuff like that, who are going on winning league titles and European Cups with Liverpool. But before that, for a long period, they were like us in terms of they had players in their squad who weren't getting in at club level, but were going playing international football, and they weren't getting great results. We need to make sure that our players aren't doing that anymore. We need to make sure that our players, and there's nothing we can do about it. It's ultimately up to them to get themselves, force themselves in, or get a move, or in Malumbi's case, maybe a loan move if he's not going to get action with Brighton, because he is a player now. He's at that key age where he needs games for his development. And same with Connolly as well. I think Connolly's just been in and out with injury. He'll be back playing Premier League now this weekend, and I think if he can avoid injury into the new year now, that could be great, because if he can go on a goal scoring run, I mean, he's one of those where Potter just seems to kind of take him out of the team sometimes. If he's not scoring goals, he seems to take him out of the team and then puts him back in again. He seems to be quite careful with Connolly. Whereas Malumbi, don't really know where he kind of fits in with Brighton at the moment. I think Connolly's definitely ahead of him in the pecking order. And then, Adam Eden needs to start getting games at Norwich. Troy needs to start getting games at Millwall. And then you could be looking at a totally different team come March,
Yeah, definitely. Just back to a couple of points, because you mentioned the substitutions, and a couple of points I'd like to make, because one, Bulgaria made a triple substitution just around the hour mark. I can't remember if it was just before, probably just after that good chance they had. And no, it didn't really work for them. I'd accept that, and they were missing quite a lot of players as well. But we seemed a lot slower, and Steve was very slow to make substitutions. Josh Cullen, I know you mentioned him. I thought Josh Cullen was superb when he came on. I thought he played really well. And he definitely is someone who put his hand up. And if he's playing regularly with Anderlecht, he'll have a very good shout for being playing, or at least in the squad. Definitely in the squad, I think, for March. You're probably right about the others, because it was probably too late to make an impression. There were flashes from Jack Byrne, but I know we're both big fans of Jack, so maybe a bit biased there. But he didn't really have enough time to make a difference. But there was certainly urgency there. We were going forward. Troy Parrott, I suppose the one chance he was unfortunately just offside. He could have been the hero. Troy is someone I think will, just to your other point, he has been out injured. So hopefully he will get a chance and he will get game time. I mean, that's why he's gone to Millwall on loan. I don't think Tottenham would be too happy if he was going there to sit in the bench. So hopefully, now that he's fit, and we will see him in a Millwall team, and hopefully he'll be fully fit for come March of next year. But yeah, I just wonder what your thoughts is. Is Stephen a bit conservative to make changes or make them so late in the game? Having said that, and particularly, I suppose, when he did make the one change with Josh Cullen, it certainly had a positive impact. That maybe he was a bit slow to make the others. Then I don't know. What do you think?
Yeah, I actually think that's a. I'm glad you brought it up because I was actually thinking it myself. I'm kind of looking at the clock at 70 minutes, thinking James Collins probably needs to come off here now. He's had 4 or 5 chances at this rate. I don't think he's going to score. Maguire could have been a better option at that point. I think it was 78 minutes before Jack Byrne came on then for Robbie Brady, and that was just purely because Robbie Brady had picked up a knock, which I
Yeah,
hope it's nothing too serious, and I hope it's he can come back at the weekend or whatever. I hope he starts getting a run of games at club level because that's another player who actually left out of those Premier League players who haven't been playing. But yeah, it is something that it kind of annoys me because I look at our team and sometimes we need a shift in energy or a shift in something. And yeah, just the subs came on far too late. Like obviously Horgan went off and Jason Knight went right wing, which I thought was actually a good decision because Knight showed what he could do on that right side, and he would be a good option going forward there if we need it as well. So he doesn't actually always have to play midfield, and this is something I like about our younger players is their versatility. They can go to different positions, but go and play them well. Whereas we know a lot of players can go into positions and they just hide and they don't do it. But I thought there was a bit of hunger, passion, bite about Knight when he was there, whereas some of the other players when they came on, they just didn't do enough. And I know some of them didn't get time. And I do think Josh Cullen did well when he came on, and he started to show a bit of energy, to try and make something happen. A bit more urgency than Howard, I would say. But we are just lacking quality. And do you look at, when Stephen's making substitutions, does he take that into account and go, well, if I'm taking Collins on, does Maguire give me that same, being able to hold the ball up? Because when Maguire came on, he was chasing shadows a bit. I felt anyway, and Troy.
Yeah, yeah. I suppose it's also very. I mean, they came on so late as well. It can be very hard to make a judgment. Um, I'd be very slow to make a critical judgment of a player who gets on the pitch for 10 minutes at the end of the game, 10, 11, 12 minutes, whatever it was. It's not really okay. I suppose you could become the hero. You could like the Finnish substitute that came on in Dublin and scored with his first touch for them. But typically, it can be hard to make that kind of an impact in just a few minutes. So, um, yeah, I don't know really. It's yeah, I certainly agree that we're probably lacking quality in certain areas, um, and definitely we need to see our players get more game time. The other thing I would say is, and I mean, I know I was probably harping on a bit too much about this, but uh, relegation would have been a total disaster. Now, in the end, whether we drew the match 0-0 or won it 1-0, it made okay. It wasn't going to impact our seeding in the end because Romania were getting the result in Belfast, but had we lost the game, we would have been relegated down to League C. We'd have ended up with a bad seeding for Euro 2024 because the best you can be is a fourth seed for Euro 2024 coming out of League C. So, not to mind the financial disaster that League C would have been for the FAI, trying to sell tickets for the Aviva for games against the likes of Gibraltar and Luxembourg and Azerbaijan and all them. Playing them in the Nations League in 2022 would have been a total disaster. So it was very, very important not to lose, and thankfully we didn't lose. So, yeah, and that's what surprised me about the Bulgarians, that they either seemed happy to draw 0-0 or else just didn't have the wherewithal to really throw the kitchen sink at us for the last 10 or 15 minutes, which is what I was expecting. I actually thought they'd throw the kitchen sink at us and we could pick them off at the break and get the goal. But, well, as we know, it finished 0-0.
Yeah, well, I don't think they had any quality, to be honest with you. I mean, they had that lad Kroyev up front who looked good, but other than that, they didn't really. For me, they had a couple of chances. Obviously, that one with Dimitrov, and it was either he hit it so bad that it went wide, or Shane Duffy got in the way of it. But either way, that was probably the best chance. And they had I remember a volley that was smashed over by Kroyev, but it was from a mad angle, so he was never scoring from there really. So I don't feel as though they had a lot of quality at all, to be honest with you. And I felt as though we probably should have beaten them with what we had anyway. And I think we had the chances to beat them. I mean, I'm just going to go through some of the stats here from the game. I have it here in front of me. So the ball possession, we had 58% to their 42. Total shots, we had 7, they had 11. Saying here we had no shots on target, and they had 1 shot on target. 7 shots off target to their 3. And that's kind of big chances created, 2. Big chance missed, 2. There's obviously Collins and Curtis. Hit woodwork, 1. So if you're kind of looking at it, they didn't really miss any big chances, as it says there. Well, I would say the one inside the box was a big chance, in my opinion. But yeah, they're no great team, in my opinion. I feel as though they should be a nation that we should be beating comfortably enough. But earlier on, there's been more revelations coming out of the camp now that saying that Stephen Kenny had showed some anti-English video or something before the England game. The Daily Mail are reporting that we don't know the whole ins and outs of it, but this is going to be another thing that's just going to add to the list of things that go against Stephen Kenny for people that just want him out at the moment,
Yeah, well, I suppose we don't know what the video was and the content of the video. So, I mean, people can have very different opinions of what's anti-English or not, and I think someone had the comment it was more pro-Irish. So I don't know. I haven't seen the video. I don't know what the video was at all. Yeah, but obviously it's not good to hear these stories. It's just another distraction. It's another negative story around the camp. So, well, I suppose hopefully it blows over anyway. It's we certainly don't like to see these stories coming out, and I suppose Irish football and the FAI becoming well, we want to see positive stories. We want to be talking about winning. We want to be talking about things like the World Cup draw, and hopefully get a good draw and qualify for Qatar. So hopefully there's nothing to the story, and I suppose time will tell.
Yeah, well, I'll just read it out, because if anyone's, I have it here on screen in front of me. So if anyone's looking to hear what the story is, this is what it says. Republic of Ireland boss Stephen Kenny showed his players an anti-English video before their 3-0 defeat at Wembley, and then it says Republic of Ireland Football Association are investigating claims that Stephen Kenny showed his players what has been described as sportsmail as an anti-English video ahead of the clash against Gareth Southgate's men. Numerous sources have told Sportsmail that some members of the Irish squad were left stunned after they were shown a video depositing, I think that's what it says, the history of Anglo-Irish relations before last Thursday's friendly at Wembley, in what is said to have been an attempt to motivate his squad ahead of the game. Previous Ireland managers have used the fractious historic relationship between the two countries to varying degrees to stoke the players ahead of the matches against England. But last week's attempt certainly took some by surprise, and appears to, in the mind of certain individuals, overstep the mark of political correctness, particularly giving a number of players also have English roots. One source described the video as close to the line. Others, however, have described the video as more pro-Ireland than anti-English, and merely an attempt to reinforce the team's heritage. Kenny's men went on to lose 3-0. The video is said to have been shown to player during meeting before the game. So you could take that 2 ways, as it said there. It could be pro-Irish or anti-English, depending on what way you kind of look at it. And if people want to spin things and make up different narratives, that's their prerogative. But look, for me anyway, I'm not reading too much into it. The FAI said they refused to comment on the matter until further notice anyway. So I'm not going to even get into it really, unless something more comes of it,
Yeah, certainly I'd like to see a lot more positive stories come out about Irish football anyway.
Your assessment of the Nations League overall? Can it be assessed? Can it be really, evaluated because of, say, injuries, COVID, suspensions, retirements? Can it couldn't have gone any worse unless we had maybe lost a few more games. But ultimately, can it be assessed or can it be judged, or is it not fair to judge till Stephen's been given a full camp with his team, or maybe a full camp with the squad that he originally has chosen?
Well, whether it's fair or not, unfortunately, he will be judged on it. And uh, and and all the things you said. I mean, we had so many withdrawals, so many issues, COVID, injuries, retirements, as you said. Um, Plus the factor of playing in empty stadiums, which I think is more of a disadvantage for us, given the lift that our teams have got in the past from having fans, particularly away from home, because our fans travel in such big numbers that they can give the team a lift when they're under a cosh, etc. And and the other thing to say, I mean, Stephen, he was very unfortunate to have the playoff in the middle of that, to have the Slovakia playoff, because the plan was to use the Nations League for experimentation. Now, I suppose he would have had no choice but the experiment, given all the players that were taken out as things transpired. Um, I mean, it is disappointing. I don't think we can put too. We can't say it hasn't been disappointing. I mean, we haven't scored a goal in 11 hours. Thankfully, we avoided relegation. It certainly could have gone a lot worse. We could have finished bottom, and we could have gone down. And I'm sure countries like Turkey and Slovakia are probably looking and saying, "Geez, we had a far better Nations League campaign than they had, and we've got relegated and they haven't." And some of that is probably just the look of the draw, because, as you said, Bulgaria were a poor side, although they'll probably point to the withdrawals and the issues they had with COVID. So it could have gone worse. There were definite positives. I mean, players did get a chance, and we definitely have discovered quite a few players are able to cut at an international level that we didn't know previously. And I'm talking Jay Malumbi, I'm talking Darragh O'Shea, I'm talking Jason Knight. We already knew about Aaron Connolly. I think he was already established. There's others, probably the jury is still out at, and possibly Stephen has decided that a couple of players are now surplus to requirements. We don't know. I think we'll see what happens when hopefully COVID will be much less of an issue come March, and certainly come next September, when the second phase of World Cup qualifying. But we will have 2 or 3 qualifiers in March, and hopefully we'll have a fully fit or a very strong squad to choose from. And I suppose the proof in the pudding will be how we do in the World Cup qualifiers. I mean, if we get off to a good start and get a good result, the Nations League will be quickly forgotten, because it is pretty much irrelevant. And we did get to experiment probably a bit more than expected. And we did avoid relegation. And really, I don't think we were ever going to win the section. You were never going to win that group up against a Welsh team that are further down the road, and a Finnish team that's probably the best team they've ever had. And although I still feel we probably unlucky to lose both games to Finland, particularly the away game. But having said that, I don't think we were ever going to win our section. So if we weren't going to win it, it's a question of just avoiding relegation. It would have been nice to have got the second seeding for the World Cup. In the end, we were very close to that. A win, a couple of wins, certainly in the Nations League, would have been enough to do that. And but yeah, it's probably the most annoying thing of it is all the negativity around the squad and the team and Irish football, and that's the frustrating thing. I mean, a goal and a win would hopefully have got rid of a lot of that, And that's why it's probably a shame that if Robbie Brady's shot had been a couple of inches lower, if Ronan Curtis had maybe just had a cooler head when that chance came, if James Collins, if one of those had gone in, we probably would have gone on to win the game 1-0, and then people wouldn't have been talking about the lack of goals. They wouldn't have been talking. Well, it would be a positive story, and we'd have 4 months of no international football, but of probably, hopefully, more positive stories. So I'm just hoping the story moves on now to the World Cup draw. I think the Nations League, it's quite disappointing, but there have been good points, and hopefully we'll be looking back on it and saying, yeah, it wasn't a great time for Irish football, but we discovered these players who are going to be around for a long, long time to come.
Yeah, I don't think there's anything more really to add to that. As you say, the young players coming in has definitely been the positive of this Nations League, and it's the only other positives other than the COVID cases. Just throwing a bit of light humour in there. But yeah, there's nothing more really we can say about it. We've spoken about the game. We've spoken about kind of the campaign as a whole, and obviously the reports about the video or whatever that was shown before the game, which we don't know what was actually shown. But huge thanks to anyone who's joined us in the comments. We didn't get a chance to go through the comments, but there's been loads of comments there, so we've seen them. But we would have just went over time if we had read through them. So we'll get you next time, 100%. If you want to follow us, you can follow us. Our social media handles are underneath our little windows there. And yeah, huge thanks for joining us. Don't forget to give this video a like. If you're new to the channel, please subscribe, and we'll speak to you all soon. Thanks for watching.
Thanks, guys.